First of all, I would like to welcome all of you and want to say that I'm very grateful that you are here. You see that it feels quite different to a normal DLD conference. It is less crowded, it is less noisy. So normally you are lucky if you have a half square meter for yourself. Today you most likely have 5, we calculated it. So you have to visit 10 conferences to come to the same square meter that you have today. So I hope you feel somehow lucky about that. So in all problem, there's always something good. So when we took the decision to do that, DLD, we were counting on you because we didn't know the regime, we didn't know what to do about it, and we did put together a program for today, tonight, and tomorrow, the hike in the mountains, that we hoped will you attract and you will support us. So thanks for doing so. I'm very happy to introduce Diego. It's the second time. We met in 2019 here for the first time, so I gave a longer introduction to him. Just to repeat it a little bit, he has been working with Apple for 14 years, something like 14 years with Steve Jobs, 16 years with Amazon. He did more or less build, or was heading the international expansion of Amazon, so 30 years thought of in Silicon Valley, although Seattle is not in Silicon Valley, kind of environment, and personalities like Jobs and Bezos benefited a lot from him. So I think that is an experience not many people will have in their lives. The company that he did build, the International of Amazon, is the equivalent of 4 to 5 times all German car industry put together. So it's quite an amazing company that he did build. A few years back, he had breakfast with Renzi, prime minister at the time in Italy. And Renzi was so smart to try to convince him to come to Italy, come back to Roma, and become the commissioner for the transformation, the digital transformation of government, to be more precise, of government services. Diego was so generous to devote his time, take up the challenge. He didn't want to consult the prime minister on the subject. He wanted to lead the effort. He wanted to build his own team. He wanted to move things forward like an entrepreneur in a governmental setting. And I think he made a huge difference. We discussed about it last time a bit. So when we locked down the countries a year ago, I think all of us still have in mind that it took, for the most companies that were able to convert at all, 5 to maximum 10 days to be digital. Most employees did work from home after 3-4 days already, and the consumers switched online. So I think for everybody it became apparent how much governmental services are lacking behind. They were lacking behind quite before the crisis, but I think it became apparent to everybody. And what we see from the opinion polls, if you look into them these days, is that everybody feels that government still looks like 19th century. And I think if that distance becomes too significant, we will run into significant problems. So I think there is no way to go on like we do. So I'm very glad to speak with Diego today about it. Diego said last time, government task is to make lives of corporations and people simple. So I think the task is clear. Did Italy deliver? And would you kindly show us what you did in Italy?
Sure.
Thank you, Diego.
Oh, thank you. So I think, by the way, Bart's presentation was almost an introduction to our theme, not only because Belgium will play with Italy on Friday.
And we are the hosts, by the way.
And you're the host.
Most likely
and by the way, I have really hard time to explain my friends that I'm here for the conference and not for the match on Friday, although I do have the tickets for that. So I worked for the Italian government for 27 months. I'm being precise because, believe me, months in government are really long. And my commitment was for 2 years. And when we left, you and I had, when we spoke, I just had left the government. And I presented here this concept of a government as a service, which is not a new concept, obviously, but all the plumbing that we've been building to make this possible. And I introduced this concept of an app called Io, which in Italian means I, the citizen, me, and which at that time was in a beta version. We had just created the vision and launched the beta version. And I've been in Italy now for a few weeks. And the other week, I almost cried in joy when my mother, which doesn't have the app yet, received an automatic message from the Italian government about if you go on the app, you can immediately download your digital COVID certificate, which is one of the many services that now deliver through the app. And by the way, I just want to say that I live in Seattle for 20 years. This is the equivalent of the app of the US government, which is a piece of paper. I'm going to try to get it through at the stadium on Friday. Strategy still matters because I have a piece of paper and I did get the vaccine in February. So digital and technology don't count if you still don't do the right strategy, so you have to do both together. So I'm going to tell you the story of this new mindset for policymakers, civil servants, and citizens has been amazingly accelerated by COVID. Coronavirus, and all the COVID consequences have killed the psychological, cultural, political barriers that would take a decade to kill in normal life. And that's not only true for business, but it's true for government too. And I strongly believe, heard all the presentation, that Europe has a chance to be very competitive if government as a service to make life easier becomes competitive. And there is a chance compared to the US, because people in the US in general, at least 50 million of those, hate government. They think government should not exist. In Europe, we believe that an efficient government does matter. And that's the big difference. Now, I'm just talking about half of the US, not whole the US. So July 3rd, 2018, I published this article on Medium and announcing the beta version of this app called EO. And the experimental phase has started in a few years. The application will allow citizens to manage their interaction with public administration, and it goes on. And we launched the beta. Obviously, I did not have in mind that the pandemic was part of the success of this story. First of all, you need to understand the complications. Why doing things in government is hard? Because this is government. This is the interconnections of the public administration, public services is exactly represented by this. Now, this seems mission impossible to try to fix that. But a simplifier is building, it is going to take a long time, a set of interfaces between services. Believe me, it is possible, and it's happening in many European governments. On the left, you have all the administrations, welfare, automobile club, municipalities, income tax department. You have the back office of what you're building, and you have a set of APIs, because at the end of the day, the relationships between government and citizens and corporations is about payment, messaging, exchange of information, creating documents, and identifying a digital domicile, like your hard address. Where do you deliver all the communications? And payments, by the way, is not just payments from citizens to government, but as we saw here with the pandemic, it's a lot of money that goes from government to citizens too. And if you make that efficient, the whole thing becomes more and more efficient. And obviously you got the personal data, the preferences, but at the end of the day, it simplifies us this way. You create, or we created some enabling platforms for most of the services. One is the digital identity called SPID. You can also do it with the electronic identity card. Same thing, same concept. And ANPR, I'm just putting this as an example just to insist on the fact that you need to build the planning, which is pretty much is the database of all citizens that in Italy used to belong to each municipality. 7,800 municipalities, the data of the citizens were laying in each one of them. Sorry, I'm going into this level of details because otherwise you are in a slogan. You have to do digital transformation versus what you need to build. And now this has been built. The key word, by the way, is continuation. Because I stopped in the end of 2018, created the Ministry of Technological Innovation, the person in charge, did not say, as politicians usually do, that was crap, let's start over. That's the biggest issue with governments and politics, that they tend to repeat and reinvent everything. And then there is now another government, and they just kept working on it. So continuation is one of the key words. Indeed, I built my succession plan 3 months after I started. And the word succession plan in government and politics is unknown, right? Because they don't think about successions. So this is an example of digital identity, which now is in the hands of 21.2 million Italians, 7,000 plus 100 public administrations have integrated this digital identity in their system, and there's still like 5,000 to go. So it's not just about the technology, but the huge work in terms of processes to integrate with all the public administration. And this is following also the interoperability rules of the European Union. So services from Germany, citizens from Germany that want to access services in Italy, in case they work there, they can use the equivalent for the German government, which is usually the identity card. Started less than 1 million. We doubled with 2 million. Well, obviously, we had to work to improve the software, the technology, which was very clunky. And by the way, for, Amazon standards, it's still very clunky, but it does work. And every time you see an acceleration, it is because there was a payment event, meaning that you force citizens to use it if government gives them money for some sort. And the biggest acceleration was in 2020 with the bonus, various bonuses that the government put in place to help pushing for COVID reliefs. So look at the numbers, 5, 15, and we're half 2021, almost half of the population, sorry, almost 2/3 of the population, or 1/3 of the population. This is the digital payment platform. Again, look at the accelerations. Digital payment platforms mean, again, digital payment as a service for which you can integrate all payments. Either you want to pay with PayPal, with your credit card, with your bank draft, with the peer-to-peer phone-based payment systems. So the point is that ubiquitous payments, citizens can pay with whatever they want. It goes only into one payment platform that reconciles all the accounting and the cash in, cash out for the entire administrations. National resident population, this I talked about it before. Now there are, out of 62 plus million people, 58 million residents are on this new platform. And the funny thing is that the new Minister of Technology and Innovation, which by the way is a former CEO of Vodafone, so I like the concept I heard before about competent people being in the right level of ministry, said that his basic work was to stop local administration to try to build again what already existed. So that's the biggest part, and its biggest effort had to be done. And very quickly, this is the roadmap of EO. 2018, we created the beta version. We launched it in July. April 2019 started being available on the stores, both Android and Apple Store. And then that's when it left. Just before, 1 year after, the basic, and okay, I'm really being very tactical here, but it's the way that matters, is that the platforms that we built at work, digital identity, digital payments, take them away from government people and putting in a group they're still owned by the government, and CDP, which is the banking, financing loan company of the Ministry of Finance, create their own group, no government influence, so they can keep working and improving the services. So they have all been put in that new group. Bonus Vacanze, which is a holiday bonus, was introduced by the government in July 2020. If you want that bonus, if you want that money, you must have the app. And it worked. And then there was another one, so cashback. And then now the Green Pass. If you want the Green Pass, it's not only through the app, but through the app, it shows up immediately, and it's complete immediate access. So those are the forcing functions. I want to notice one thing, that nothing changed in Italian politics. In those 2018 to 2021, 3 years, there still have been 4 prime ministers and 4 governments. I mean, so it's not the Italian politics that have been changing. But if you build that in such a way that any new government, any color, understands that they must have that, it's not about a political label, then you can do the work. And that's the part. And by the way, I stopped taking the merit because I left in 2018. So all the merit and all the great work has been done by the way, half of my team that I hired is still working there, and they're all people coming from the private sector. And I strongly believe that at some point in your career, the mission of helping your government is very, very important. And these are the number of the app, 13 million downloads, 8.7 million citizens using the app for the cashback, 8.1 million families use the app for the holiday bonus that I mentioned before. Again, don't get me wrong, policies can still be bad, and digitization makes bad policies very efficient. Again, I want to separate the two things. But at least you can measure, because thanks to big data and all the new ways to measure, you can measure very, very clearly. And pretty much this is it.
Thank you, Diego. Last time you said adoption of people is a real challenge, as it is not a daily habit to use a government app. When I'm listening to you, the real use case that forced people into the app were coincidence. So something happened, people wanted to have money because of Corona, boom, you do it through the app, you use the app and you create the use case, and then they come. You have the green pass, you want to have it, you use it. So it was not known in advance what would be the killer app. Am I right or am I wrong?
You are absolutely right.
You build it and you then drive it along the way as you see an opportunity, put it on the app, and then make your people become users.
It's absolutely true. So you need to find reasons for people to use it. And over time, hopefully, there are already 9,000 services on it, at least nominal services, right? By being nominal to being then really used, it's going to be taking months, years, and everything. But yes, you need to give a reason for people. At Amazon we've called convenience. People use Amazon or other e-commerce websites because it's convenient, because it works. And we grow as citizens. We grow by thinking that government is a necessary pain. And we don't think that government could also be done in a good way.
I didn't see a Corona app on the platform. Is there none, or did that not work?
If you mean like a track and trace app?
Yes, absolutely.
There was a track and trace app, there still is, called Immuni, that is now being integrated over time. But again, an app like a track and trace app must, in order to work, it needs to be working 100%. It must be connected with the health system, must be connected with the vaccination data, must be connected with the government's way to intervene. And the app is being built. By the way, it's a fantastic app built by a private company, young people that decided to give back to the government this way. But if it doesn't get integrated with all the services, it's useless. This is why technology is important, but overall it's policy making. And what I heard from Bart before is very important. The Belgian Minister of Technology that became the Prime Minister, it's key. Those things happen because, honestly, they're top-down. If the Prime Minister, the President, whoever, believes that this is key, it doesn't consider technology, that's for IT guys. No, it's part of your political
Because
agenda.
it's a transformation.
Because it's transformation.
And
that's why the overall enterprise
CEO.
in Europe will benefit from that.
Absolutely.
I mean, Estonia works well. Estonia works incredibly well, both because it's small, but also because the government, the digital government, is really...
Yeah, they don't have 25 layers, obviously. So I think Renzi took the right decision to hire an excellent expert, apolitical, may I say so, technical expert who's able to build all this. How did you protect against the wrong successor?
Sure.
So a political successor, let's say.
So by the way, I am not apolitical. I have my clear opinions, but obviously in my role,
But you didn't want to have a political career
I actually,
in that sense.
No, I had two Democratic Party prime minister and one from the Five-Star Movement. I mean, almost polar opposites. So, and I got along with both of them, although with different degrees of tolerance. again, from very tactical activities, which is spending a lot of time to communicate to the key policymakers why this works. I mean, at some point, I had to move from being, hiring the people, launching the program, convincing the administration to integrate the services, to convincing the new government that they should not build things from scratch. Although their consultants were telling them, oh, that's crap, that was the other government, you need to build things from scratch. So you need to put a lot of passion and energy in communication, which is not enough. And then you do those tactical things, which I mean, preserving what you built, moving them away from politicians so that politicians cannot ruin them after that, and making sure they live their own life. It's not easy. We got very lucky. The Minister for Innovation and Technology that came after me, as I said, I was commissioner. The ministry did not exist yet. We created it as a consequence of my departure. Had great heart, but being a politician in nature, was not making as much progress and being very kind as we would have liked to. And then the Draghi government came in, brought in a lot of really competent people, and those things happened. So it's a combination of lucky things. Draghi was not called because of digital transformation. It was called to fix crisis, which is a daily usage in Italy.
So in the normal process, it would have gone bust. Is it
Unfortunately, yes. So this is a series of fortunate events.
So is it then right to create a digital ministry, because that's a discussion in that country right now, or is it better to have an expert team sitting close to the Chancellor, our Prime Minister, and make it a Prime Minister role to drive through the change and leave it there with technical experts more than political experts?
Well, I guess the answer is situational. It depends on how governments are formed, where the powers are. But I do think that, by the way, a Ministry for Technology and Innovation that we do have in Italy, their job would put themselves out of business in 20 years or 10 years. You don't want to have a digital transformation forever. You want to build them in each department so they can do it on their own. But the Ministry for Technology and Innovation or the government, they all report to the Prime Minister directly. They are within the Prime Minister's staff. And my strong recommendation that they needs to come from the, if I did not have my organization at Palazzo Chigi, is where the Prime Minister says, half of the people would not listen to me.
And maybe I'm allowed to have a last question.
Sure.
We didn't cover education for now. It was outside of your scope. But this has definitely been an area that has been under enormous challenge over the last 18 months and didn't cope with digitization, I would say, at all, at least in Germany, I think in most other countries as well. So taking from your experience with government services in Roma, what is your point of view that we should do? What kind of initiative we should start once it comes to improving education and make more use of online and maybe even change subject that we teach in schools?
Well, it's a big, by the way, being in the board and the executive meeting of Bocconi, we're going through that process of transformation. And we, for example, decided a few years ago to make, even in the degree of economics, Python as a programming language is a mandatory course in the first year. Not because we want all economists being able to program, but because we want to build a logical thinking around programming. So that's one way to do it. Obviously, it's this, and that's why I like the initiatives that Steffi talked about, the merge of STEM with humanities. That's obviously the best of both worlds, and that's where you need to go into that direction. But it's unavoidable. And by the way, I'm speaking as an Italian now, where unfortunately Italy is the very bottom of the ranking in terms of education. And this is going to go through improving education and going away from the old way of teaching into, it's about people, by the way, it's about people.
Yeah. Does it need a transformation officer in the vicinity of the CEO of Italy?
Say again?
Would it need a person like you to transform education close to the Prime Minister?
Yes, well, not necessarily like me, because probably I'm not the right person for that, but you need to have on
with
the
a
top.
Different
it's
education.
Again, the top-down change. Person that is thinking about how to move forward in that direction. And that's where I think the European Union can do a lot. But patience is the key word. I mean, those things don't...
And where can
don't
we buy patience? Thank you, Diego, for doing this before Steffi kicks me out. And